Leora watched the shuttle dock at the colony port from the observation deck, her hands gripping the railing so tightly, her knuckles whitened. She could feel the hum of the engines vibrating through the floor and into her chest. The city below was alive with activity. Trains gliding silently above glass streets, human workers moving purposefully, and the vast spires of Erythra Prime rising toward the twin suns in a way that seemed impossible. Yet impossible or not, it was her reality now. She had taken her sister's place. Mara had been chosen months ago. Leora remembered the excitement in her sister's eyes when she received the selection notice. Mara had dreamed of exploring distant worlds, of seeing the galaxy beyond Earth's atmosphere, and now she had the chance. But 2 days before departure, she fell ill. The doctors' faces were grim, filled with worry and disappointment. Mara's dreams were ending before they even began. Leora could not stand by. She could not let her sister suffer. So she made the choice herself. She had told the selection committee, her voice steady, that she would go instead. At first, they were hesitant. They had never had a volunteer replace the chosen bride. But when Leora insisted, her determination could not be ignored. She had always been stubborn, her mother would say, and now it had become courage. The shuttle bay was crowded with humans and a few Xylar observers. The Xylar were elegant, taller than humans, with smooth, golden-brown skin that seemed to glow under the artificial lights, and eyes that could see too much. Their expressions were neutral, almost unreadable, but Leora felt them watching her. She had read about the Xylar, how they could judge a person in a single glance, how they valued intelligence and bravery over beauty and charm. Her heart beat faster, not with fear, but with the weight of expectation. She had to show them that humans were more than fragile creatures from a distant world. The boarding call echoed through the bay. One by one, humans entered the shuttle. Leora took a deep breath, adjusted the strap of her bag, and stepped forward. She walked with a calmness she did not entirely feel. Every eye seemed to follow her, every Xylar observer, silently recording her every movement. As she crossed the floor, she imagined Mara watching from somewhere back on Earth or the colony, wishing she could see her sister take this journey. Leora's resolve strengthened. She would do this for Mara, for herself, and for humanity. The shuttle's interior was sleek and smooth, designed more for efficiency than comfort. Seats molded to the body's shape, soft lighting that mimicked Earth's natural sunlight, and a quiet hum that suggested a power far beyond anything humans had built at home. Leora found her assigned seat and strapped herself in. The other passengers were quiet, some nervous, some excited. She looked around at their faces and saw the same mix of emotions she felt. Then the hatch closed, the air pressure shifted slightly, and the engines thrummed as the shuttle lifted from the dock. Leora's stomach fluttered as the city of Erythra Prime fell away beneath them. The twin suns reflected off the glass and metal of the colony, casting long, bright streaks across the landscape. She pressed her hand against the window, as if trying to hold on to the familiar world one last time. Hours passed in silence. Leora watched the stars approach, the darkness of space enveloping the shuttle. The Xylar observers sat apart, their posture rigid, their expressions unreadable. Leora wondered what they thought of her. Did they see her fear, her courage, or just another human to evaluate? She could only hope that her actions would speak louder than her nervousness. The shuttle finally arrived at the Xylar homeworld. The moment the airlock opened, Leora felt the difference. The atmosphere was heavier, yet breathable. The sky was tinted a pale gold, the light from its sun giving everything a warm, soft glow. The city below stretched endlessly, buildings taller than any human had ever imagined, shaped in spirals and curves that seemed impossible. Light moved along the structures as if the buildings themselves were alive, shifting in response to some invisible rhythm. Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never seen anything like it. A Xylar attendant guided the humans down a wide walkway toward a vast hall. Inside, The ceiling soared high above, a dome of crystal-like material that shimmered as if it contained stars. The walls were smooth, glowing faintly, and the air smelled faintly sweet, unlike anything on Earth. Leora's heart raced, not with fear, but with awe. She had imagined alien worlds in books and holovids, but none of them compared to the reality of standing here. At the center of the hall stood the Xylar commander, Kale. He was taller than anyone Leora had ever seen, with golden eyes that seemed to look through her as she stepped forward. His presence was commanding, but not threatening. It demanded attention and respect. Leora had heard stories of him, how he chose the brides for the Xylar carefully, evaluating their intellect, courage, and adaptability. Every movement, every glance was part of a silent test. Leora walked forward, head held high, though her palms were slightly sweaty. She bowed respectfully, aware that every detail mattered. Kale's eyes followed her, unblinking. She noticed that, unlike others, he did not immediately step back or give her a conventional greeting. Instead, he observed. The ceremony began. Leora had practiced the formal greetings, the phrases, the polite gestures she had memorized from the texts provided by the colony. She performed them with precision, but when a question arose that no manual had prepared her for, she spoke honestly, calmly, without hesitation. The other humans looked nervous, uncertain, but Leora felt a surge of confidence. She was no longer just a replacement for her sister. She was herself, and that might be more powerful than following every rule. After the ceremony, the humans were escorted to their quarters, a cluster of rooms designed for comfort and safety. Leora's room overlooked the city. She sat by the window, watching the light shift across the golden skyline. The twin suns cast long shadows, creating patterns that seemed almost alive. She could hear the faint hum of the city, the movement of the Xylar in the streets below. It was beautiful, but strange, and she felt the weight of what she had undertaken. As evening approached, Leora wandered through the corridors, trying to familiarize herself with the alien architecture. Every surface seemed to pulse faintly, as if the building itself responded to her presence. She marveled at the smooth curves, the floating lights, and the subtle glow in the walls. She felt small, yet in a way that did not diminish her. Something about this world invited curiosity and courage rather than submission. Later, she met Kale again, in a quieter hall lined with soft golden light. He spoke little, but his presence was undeniable. "You are different from the others," he said, his voice calm but resonant. Leora tilted her head slightly, uncertain. "Different how?" she asked. "Horror, Bastian Teosk." Kale's gaze held hers. "You do not fear. You do not merely follow instructions. You observe, and you understand." His words made her heart skip. No human had ever been praised in this way by a Xylar before. She realized then that her presence here was not just a formality. She had a chance to show what humans could truly do, what she herself could do. That night, lying in her bed, Leora thought of Mara, lying sick in a distant city, and felt a pang of worry. But she also felt determination. She had taken her sister's place, but she would not be a shadow. She would forge her own path here, on this strange and magnificent world. She would prove that humans were more than fragile, more than replaceable. She would show that courage, intelligence, and heart could shine even among the stars. Outside, the twin suns dipped behind the spires, casting the city in warm, golden shadows. Leora's eyes followed the light as it danced across the walls, reflecting in her mind the hope she carried. She was far from home, surrounded by a world that seemed impossible, yet she felt ready. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. She would meet the other brides, the Xylar leaders, and face trials that would challenge everything she knew. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment of peace. She had taken a leap into the unknown, and she had not faltered. She had stepped forward when it mattered most, And that was a beginning. Somewhere in the distance she imagined her sister smiling, proud. Somewhere in the shadows of this alien world, Kael observed her quietly, already intrigued, and Leora knew that this was only the first step in a journey that could change everything, not just for her, but for all humans in the galaxy. The first morning on the Xylar homeworld came with a golden light that spilled into Leora's room like liquid warmth. She woke to the faint hum of the city, the buildings outside shimmering as if alive. Every surface seemed to pulse subtly, and the air carried a soft, sweet scent unlike anything on Earth. Leora took a deep breath, steadying herself for what she knew would be a day unlike any other. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple outfit provided by the Xylar attendants, unlike the ornate gowns the other human brides had worn for the welcome ceremony. Hers was practical, allowing freedom of movement. She had decided early on that she would not hide behind appearances. She would be herself, no matter how alien this world felt. As she stepped into the hall outside her quarters, Leora noticed the other human brides gathered in small groups. Some whispered nervously, clutching their hands or fidgeting with their attire. Their eyes darted around at the Xylar attendants, wide with fear or wonder. Leora walked among them with calm confidence, nodding politely, offering a smile. A few of them glanced at her curiously, perhaps sensing that she was not like the others. A Xylar attendant appeared and gestured for the brides to follow. They walked along corridors that curved and rose, their surfaces smooth and glowing faintly. Light followed them, shifting and bending, as if the building itself was aware of their movement. Leora marveled silently, imagining how much technology must have gone into creating such a responsive structure. They arrived at a central hall, immense and open, filled with Xylar leaders who had come to meet the human delegates. Leora's heart beat faster, but she did not show it. The leaders were tall, elegant, their expressions composed and unreadable. Their golden-brown skin shimmered under the light, and their eyes were sharp, observing every detail. She felt the weight of their gaze, but she refused to shrink. Kael, the commander, stood slightly apart. He did not approach immediately, merely observing as the brides were introduced. When his eyes met hers, Leora felt a quiet tension, not fear, but recognition. He tilted his head slightly, as if acknowledging something unique about her presence. Leora met his gaze steadily, refusing to look away. She sensed that this moment, simple as it seemed, was important. The introduction ended, and the human brides were guided through the city for their first exposure to Xylar culture. The streets floated above the surface in smooth, transparent walkways, winding around structures that seemed to grow organically. Leora's senses were filled with sights, sounds, and colors, unlike anything she had ever known. Yet amid the wonder, she kept her focus. She noticed the Xylar watching her reactions, noting how she adapted, how she observed, how she moved with curiosity rather than fear. At midday, they were taken to a central plaza, where the first trial would take place. Leora had learned that the Xylar tested the brides not with combat or cruelty, but with puzzles and challenges that measured intelligence, adaptability, and understanding of alien technology. It was a subtle test, one that could reveal who was capable of rising above instinct and fear. The other brides hesitated as they faced their first challenge, a holographic projection that shifted and changed shape continuously. The task was to manipulate the projection to form a pattern that the Xylar considered harmonious. Most humans struggled at first, their hands moving uncertainly, eyes wide with confusion. Leora took a deep breath, observing carefully. She noticed the projection responded to touch, yes, but also seemed to react to intention. She let her mind flow with the changes, and slowly the chaotic shapes began to align under her guidance. A soft murmur ran through the observers. The Xylar leaders exchanged glances, some raising their brows slightly. Kael stepped closer, his golden eyes fixed on her. He did not speak, but his attention made Leora's pulse quicken. She felt no fear, only focus. Her hands moved with quiet precision, her mind mapping the patterns, predicting the shifts, and responding intuitively. Within minutes, the projection aligned perfectly. A harmonious glow bathed the plaza, signaling the challenge's completion. The other brides looked at her in astonishment. Some clutched their hands to their chests. Others whispered softly to one another. Leora smiled faintly, feeling a spark of pride. She had not only succeeded, she had done so with calm and clarity. Kale nodded subtly, almost imperceptibly, and then stepped back, observing. Leora understood that this was not just about winning a challenge. It was about showing the Xylar what humans could do when fear did not rule them. The afternoon brought another trial, one of social understanding. The brides were paired with Xylar assistants and asked to navigate a simulated crisis involving multiple factions and conflicting objectives. Most humans became flustered, struggling to communicate or predict the behavior of the alien participants. Leora, however, approached the simulation with curiosity and empathy. She listened carefully, observed patterns, and asked questions that clarified the situation. Slowly, she guided the groups to solutions that satisfied everyone, her calm and intelligent approach standing in sharp contrast to the flustered attempts of the others. Kale watched closely, his interest growing. Unlike the other Xylar, he seemed to see not just her success, but the reasoning behind it. Her courage was evident, but it was her mind, her ability to adapt and understand, that fascinated him most. He had met humans before, but none had demonstrated such poise, such clarity, and such instinctive understanding of alien behavior. Leora was different. When the trials ended for the day, the human brides were escorted back to their quarters. Leora walked quietly, reflecting on what had happened. She felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a deeper understanding. This world, this alien culture, was not meant to be conquered or feared. It was meant to be understood, respected, and navigated with intelligence and heart. She realized that her role here was bigger than being a bride. It was to show what humans could achieve when they acted with courage and wisdom. That evening, Kale visited her quietly, unannounced. Liara had been sitting by the window, watching the golden glow of the twin suns cast shadows across the city. When he entered, she did not startle. She had come to expect the unexpected here. "You handle yourself well," he said, his voice calm, measured, yet carrying a weight that made her sit up straighter. "Most humans falter under observation." "You do not." Leora inclined her head respectfully. "I only try to understand. Fear does not help anyone." Kale regarded her for a long moment. Few understand the Xylar this way. Even fewer without guidance. "You see more than most. You notice what is unseen. That is rare."
Leora felt a strange warmth at his words. It was not praise in the human sense, but recognition.
Something about his observation felt personal, and she realized that she had captured the attention of someone powerful, someone who could influence not just her experience here, but the way humans were perceived on this world. "I do not wish to be extraordinary," she said softly.
"I only wish to do what is right."
Kael's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. Extraordinary is not a choice for some. It finds those who act with courage when it matters most. He paused, then added, "And you act without hesitation. That is unusual for your kind." She only nodded, understanding that her presence here had already begun to make a difference. She was more than a replacement for her sister. She was herself, and that alone was remarkable in this place. The rest of the evening passed quietly. Leora walked through the corridors, exploring a little more, observing subtle details. The way the light shifted in response to movement, the soft hum of energy in the walls, the interactions of Xylar, who moved with elegance and precision. She realized that every moment here was a lesson, every observation a step toward understanding. When she returned to her quarters, she looked at the stars beyond the window. They twinkled with distant light, a reminder of Earth far away, of her sister waiting, and of the journey that lay ahead. She knew that the coming days would bring more challenges, more trials, and more opportunities to prove herself. But for the first time, she felt a quiet confidence. She could face what was coming because she had already faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown. And she had prevailed. Tomorrow, the next phase of the trials would begin. There would be tasks that tested not only intellect but empathy, leadership, and the ability to inspire. Leora realized that her role here was not just to survive, but to demonstrate the potential of humanity. She was not just a bride. She was a representative of everything humans could be. Courageous, intelligent, adaptive, and unafraid to rise above expectation. As the twin suns set behind the spires of the city, casting long golden reflections across the streets, Leora sat quietly. She felt a connection to this world growing, not of fear or submission, but of respect and understanding. Somewhere in the shadows, Kale observed her, already intrigued, already aware that this human was unlike any other he had encountered. And Leora knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning of a journey that would change her, and perhaps all of humanity. Forever. The morning arrived with a quiet brilliance, the twin suns casting soft gold over the spires of the Xylar city. Leora woke, feeling a mix of anticipation and determination. The first trials had tested her observation and intelligence, but today, she knew, the challenges would be different. They would not be solved by calm alone. They required action, creativity, and insight. She dressed quickly, choosing another practical outfit that allowed freedom of movement. As she descended the smooth, glowing corridors of the Xylar complex, she noticed other human brides gathering, speaking quietly among themselves. Some looked tense, others anxious. Leora nodded politely to a few of them, offering a calm smile. She sensed the subtle curiosity in their eyes. She was no longer just one among them. She had set herself apart. The brides were escorted to a large chamber, unlike the previous halls. The ceiling arched high above, glowing softly, but the space was divided into smaller zones, each designed to present a distinct challenge. Xylar assistants moved among the chambers, guiding the brides and offering instructions. Today's trials were meant to assess adaptability and practical intelligence, how the humans could interact with Xylar technology and solve unexpected problems. The first task involved a mechanical device, complex and intricate, floating in the center of the chamber. Its surfaces were sleek, with panels that shifted and glowed. The Xylar assistant explained that the device was malfunctioning and needed to be restored to harmony. Several brides approached hesitantly, touching panels and pressing buttons at random. Lights flickered, shifted, but the device resisted their efforts. Leora stepped forward. She studied the device carefully, noting patterns in the flickering lights, the gentle hum that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. She recalled Kale's words from the previous evening. Observe, understand, and act. Taking a deep breath, she reached out with intention, letting her hands follow the logic her mind had traced. Slowly, the panels began to align. The hum steadied. The lights synchronized, and the device glowed in perfect harmony. A murmur ran through the observers. The Xylar assistants exchanged glances, impressed by her intuitive understanding. Leora felt a quiet satisfaction, not from showing superiority, but from solving a problem calmly and clearly. She had not been afraid to try, and that willingness had made all the difference. Kale, observing from a distance, nodded slightly, his golden eyes reflecting acknowledgement and interest. The next task was different. A simulation of a social dilemma was projected across the chamber. Leora watched as holographic figures, Xylar and human alike, faced conflicting priorities. The goal was to mediate the situation so that all parties were satisfied, without favoring one over another. Some brides panicked, unsure how to approach a problem that involved communication, compromise, and understanding of alien behavior. Leora observed carefully. She noticed subtle gestures, the way the figures shifted, the tones and patterns that revealed intentions. She approached the simulation with patience, listening first, acting second. Her solutions were logical but empathetic, bridging gaps the other brides did not see. Slowly, the simulation responded, the conflict resolving into a smooth, harmonious interaction. The chamber glowed brighter as the trial ended, signaling success. The other human brides looked at her in awe. Some whispered, others simply stared, astonished at her composure and insight. Leora offered a faint smile, but said nothing. She understood that this was not about competition. It was about proving that humans could think beyond instinct, could act with clarity, empathy, and courage. After the simulation, a brief break allowed the brides to rest. Leora wandered the chamber, observing the Xylar assistants as they prepared for the next challenge. She noticed the subtle differences among them, the way some moved with exact precision, others with a quiet flexibility. She realized that understanding the Xylar was as important as understanding the tasks. Culture, thought patterns, and values were all part of the trials, and the humans who could perceive these nuances had an advantage. When the next challenge began, it involved a series of obstacles that required creativity and initiative. A small group of Xylar drones had malfunctioned and were moving unpredictably around the chamber. The task was to redirect them without harm, using only logic, observation, and understanding of the device's behavior. Several brides attempted to corral the drones physically, chasing them with panic, only to cause more chaos. Leora took a different approach. She observed the drones' patterns, noting that they reacted to subtle signals. Instead of chasing, she guided, using gentle motions and timing her actions to synchronize with their movements. The drones responded, adjusting their paths as if she had communicated directly with them. The chamber filled with a soft light, indicating that the task was complete. Kale stepped closer this time, his presence undeniable. "Your approach is unusual," he said quietly. "Most humans act with force or panic. You act with thought, observation, and care."
That is rare.
Leora met his gaze. "I learned that fear often causes more problems than solutions. Understanding is more important than control." Kale nodded slightly, as if weighing her words carefully. "You have a perspective many Xylar have overlooked for centuries. Perhaps humans are not as limited as we believed." Leora felt a warmth at his words, a recognition she had not expected. She realized that this was more than a trial. It was an opportunity to change the perception of her species. She was no longer just representing herself. She was representing all humans who had come to the stars, seeking opportunity and understanding. The final trial of the day was the most unexpected. The brides were presented with a puzzle of abstract shapes and light. Its purpose was unclear, and there were no instructions beyond a single statement: restore harmony. Most brides hesitated, confused by the ambiguity. Leora stepped forward, studying the puzzle carefully. She noticed that the shapes seemed to respond to her observation, shifting subtly as she considered patterns and relationships. Instead of forcing an immediate solution, she experimented. She moved the pieces gently, letting her intuition guide her. Slowly, patterns emerged, lights aligned, and the abstract shapes formed a harmonious arrangement. The chamber glowed fully, signaling completion. Leora felt a quiet triumph. She had succeeded not by following instructions, but by thinking, observing, and trusting her instincts. As the day ended, Leora walked through the corridors, reflecting on her successes. She had not only completed the trials, but had done so in a way that impressed the Xylar leaders. She realized that her presence here had begun to make a difference. Humans could be more than fragile, limited beings. They could observe, adapt, and achieve remarkable things. She felt a growing pride, not in arrogance, but in understanding her potential. That evening, Kyle visited her again, arriving quietly as she studied the city from her window. The twin suns were setting, casting long golden reflections across the spires. He did not speak immediately, only stood in quiet observation. Leora sensed that he had come to acknowledge her achievements personally. "You approach challenges differently," he said finally. "Most would react with fear, hesitation, or blind compliance. You observe, understand, and act. That is why you succeed." Leora inclined her head, feeling a sense of connection she had not expected. "I only try to do what is right," she said softly, "not to impress anyone, but to understand and to find the best way forward." Kyle regarded her in silence for a long moment, then nodded. "You are not like the others. Your mind, your courage, it is unusual for a human. I am intrigued." The word sent a shiver through Leora, not of fear, but of realization. Kale was powerful, influential, and yet he acknowledged her intellect and presence openly. She felt that her actions here could reshape the way humans were seen by the Xylar. She was no longer just a bride in a ceremonial role. She was a representative of her species' potential. As Kale left, Leora remained by the window, gazing at the city below. The glow of the twin suns bathed the streets in gold, and she imagined the humans and Xylar moving through their lives, unaware of the subtle shifts her actions were causing. She realized that courage was not only about facing danger, it was about thinking, understanding, and acting wisely, even in the presence of uncertainty. She thought of Mara, still on Earth or in the colony, and felt a quiet smile. She had taken her sister's place, but she was no longer just a substitute. She was herself, capable and respected, and already making a difference. She knew the trials would continue, more complex and challenging than before, but she felt ready. She had learned the power of observation, the importance of understanding, and the strength of calm action. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and perhaps new recognition. Leora felt a sense of purpose, a quiet confidence that she had never known before. She was no longer a shadow of her sister. She was a force, a mind, a human, capable of achieving extraordinary things in a world that had once seemed impossible. As night fell over the spires, the city shimmered softly in golden light. Leora closed her eyes, feeling a quiet pride and determination. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and challenge, and she had triumphed. She knew that this journey was only beginning, and that the trials ahead would test not only her abilities, but her courage, her insight, and her humanity. And somewhere in the distance, Kale observed quietly, intrigued and aware that this human was unlike any he had ever met. Leora smiled faintly to herself. She was ready for whatever came next. The morning light on the Xylar homeworld filtered through the tall spires, bathing the city in soft, golden warmth. Leora stood by her window, looking out at the vast streets below, alive with movement. She felt a quiet calm. The trials had tested her mind, her courage, and her insight, and she had passed them all. Yet today would be different. It was the day of the final selection, the ceremony where the commander would make his choice. Leora dressed simply, as always, choosing attire that allowed ease of movement. She did not need adornments or decoration. She had realized long ago that what mattered was not appearance, but mind, heart, and courage. She took a deep breath and stepped into the hall, joining the other brides. The hall was immense, more magnificent than any she had seen before. Light shimmered along the walls, reflecting in patterns that seemed alive. Xylar leaders filled the space, standing tall and still, their golden brown eyes fixed on the humans. Leora felt their attention, felt the weight of expectation, but she did not falter. She had faced fear before. She had adapted. She had proven herself. Kale entered last, his presence commanding silence. He moved through the crowd with ease, his golden eyes scanning the humans carefully. When they landed on Leora, he paused slightly, as if acknowledging the journey she had taken to reach this moment. A ripple of curiosity passed through the Xylar leaders. None of the humans had impressed them like she had, and the commander's attention was telling. The ceremony began with words that Leora did not fully understand. Yet she could feel the meaning behind them. It was a formal acknowledgement of human effort, of cooperation, and of potential. She observed the other brides, noting their nervous glances, their tentative gestures. Some tried to follow protocol perfectly, others seemed unsure. Leora remained calm, standing tall, observing everything. When it came time for Cale to speak, the hall fell silent. His voice, deep and resonant, carried effortlessly through the chamber. He spoke of the trials, the observations, and the purpose of the human delegation. He praised those who had worked diligently, yet when his gaze fell on Leora, there was a subtle shift. "You," he said, his voice clear and firm, "have shown qualities beyond expectation. You have observed, understood, and acted with courage and clarity. You have not merely followed instructions. You have led, adapted, and shown insight that even some of our own admire. Your mind is sharp, your heart steady, and your spirit unyielding." Leora felt a flutter of nervousness, quickly tempered by the calm she had cultivated over the past days. Cale continued, "You have demonstrated the potential of your species. Your actions prove that humans are not weak or limited. They are capable of extraordinary thought, creativity, and understanding. You have earned recognition not only from me, but from those who once doubted your kind." The other brides looked at her in astonishment. Some whispered quietly, unable to conceal their surprise. Leora's heart swelled with pride, not for herself alone, but for all humans who had come to the stars, seeking opportunity. Her courage and insight had opened doors, reshaped perceptions, and earned the admiration of the Xylar. Cale stepped closer, his golden eyes studying her carefully. "I choose you," he said, and the hall fell into silence. His words were not simply a selection of a bride. They were a statement. He did not choose her because she conformed, because she was obedient, or because she fit a role. He chose her because she embodied qualities that humans could offer: courage, intelligence, empathy, and resilience. Leora's chest tightened. She had come as a substitute for her sister, uncertain and anxious, and now she was recognized as herself, a human capable of standing among the most advanced beings in the galaxy. She bowed respectfully, acknowledging both Cale and the Xylar leaders. "I am honored," she said softly. "I will do my best." Cale nodded, a faint smile brushing his lips. "Your best is already evident. What comes next is a continuation of your journey, not only as a human among the Xylar, but as an ambassador of your species' potential." The ceremony concluded with applause, not loud or exaggerated, but deliberate and sincere. The Xylar leaders recognized achievement, and Leora understood that her actions had not only earned her respect, but had shifted the perception of humans in this world. She was no longer just a representative. She was a symbol. After the ceremony, Cale guided her through the city. The twin suns glowed softly, casting golden reflections across the streets. He spoke of Xylar culture, of challenges yet to come, and of the opportunities humans could seize through cooperation and understanding. Leora listened carefully, absorbing every word, every detail. She realized that her journey had only begun, that there were lessons to learn, relationships to build, and potential to unlock, not only for herself, but for all humans in the colony. As they walked, Cale spoke again, his tone quieter now. "You have surprised us all, Leora, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and understanding. You have reminded us that humans are not limited by fear or expectation. They can achieve what we never imagined." Leora looked up at him, feeling the weight of his words. "I only tried to do what I could, to act with thought and care. I never imagined it could mean so much." Cale regarded her for a long moment. "It does mean much. It means everything for those who will follow in your footsteps, for the humans who will come after, and for the potential of cooperation between our worlds. The days that followed were quieter, but no less significant. Leora began to work alongside Sylar scholars and engineers, observing and learning, while also sharing human perspectives and solutions. She found that her curiosity, intuition, and empathy were valuable. Where the Xylar had thought in patterns and rules, humans could see connections, possibilities, and approaches that even advanced technology could not predict. She began teaching other humans quietly, showing them how to adapt, how to understand, and how to act with confidence. Slowly, the colony began to shift. The humans were no longer passive participants. They became innovators, observers, and problem solvers. And everywhere she went, KL watched, his interest never waning, his respect for her unwavering. One evening, as the twin suns set over the city, Leora walked along the high walkway overlooking the colony. She thought of Earth, of Mara, and of the decision that had brought her here. She had stepped forward in place of her sister, uncertain and anxious. Yet now she had grown into herself. She was not a replacement anymore. She was Leora, a human capable of influencing worlds, of inspiring others, and of proving that humanity had value beyond imagination. Kale appeared beside her, silent at first, observing the city with her. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "You have changed how we see your kind, not by demanding attention, but by showing it through action, thought, and courage. You have reminded us that humans are capable of greatness." Leora smiled softly. "I only acted as I could. I never expected it to make a difference beyond myself." "Ah." Ael turned to her, his golden eyes reflecting the light of the setting suns. "And yet it has. Your choices, your courage, and your intelligence have inspired humans and Xylar alike. You have earned a place, not just as a bride, but as a symbol of what your species can achieve. You are extraordinary, Leora, not because of ceremony or title, but because of who you are." She felt a warmth spread through her chest. Recognition was one thing, but understanding, respect, and admiration from someone as powerful as KL was something entirely different. She realized then that her journey had transformed her, not from fear into courage alone, but from uncertainty into purpose. Days turned into weeks, and Leora continued her work and studies among the Xylar. The humans began to adapt, their confidence growing, their creativity flourishing. The Xylar, initially skeptical, began to see humans as capable allies, not merely fragile creatures. And Leora, who had once stepped in only as a substitute for her sister, became the embodiment of human potential. When the final report of the trials was presented to the Xylar Council, Kyle spoke first. "One human has distinguished herself above all others. She has shown intelligence, courage, empathy, and initiative. She has not only succeeded in the trials, but has demonstrated the potential of her species. Leora is chosen not because she replaced her sister, but because she is herself, extraordinary and capable." The council nodded, and the other humans looked at Leora with awe. She realized that her actions had opened doors not just for herself, but for all humans who might come to the stars in the future. Her courage, intelligence, and humility had reshaped perceptions, building bridges between worlds. As the ceremony concluded, Leora stood beside Kael, watching the city bathed in golden light. The twin suns cast long shadows over the spires, but she did not feel small. She felt capable, valued, and powerful.
Not through force, but through intelligence, courage, and heart.
She had gone to the Xylar homeworld as a substitute, uncertain of her place, and now she stood recognized as a hero, a symbol, and a representative of humanity's limitless potential. Kale placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "The journey ahead will continue, but you have proven that humanity has a place among the stars, not as followers, but as equals. You have changed how we see your species, and for that, I am grateful." Leora looked up at him, feeling a quiet joy and pride. "I only acted as I could, with courage and thought. I never expected to make such a difference." Kyle smiled faintly. "And yet you have. You have shown us all what humans can achieve when fear does not rule them. You are extraordinary, not because you were chosen, but because you chose to act. You chose to be yourself." As the twin suns sank behind the spires, casting the city in golden shadows, Leora felt a deep sense of accomplishment and purpose. She had come as a substitute for her sister, unsure and hesitant, and she had emerged recognized for her courage, intelligence, and humanity. She had proven that humans could stand among the stars not as fragile outsiders, but as capable, inspiring, and extraordinary beings. And in that moment, with the city glowing beneath them and Kale at her side, Leora understood that this was only the beginning. Her journey had transformed her, and her presence would transform the perception of humanity for generations to come. She had gone in her sister's place, and yet she had found her own destiny, a destiny of courage, respect, and infinite potential.